Close your eyes. Imagine a land where the wind carries secrets across sun-scorched cliffs, where the desert hums with the weight of forgotten truths. This is the Paracas Peninsula, a jagged scar of earth along Peru's southern coast, where the Pacific's restless waves crash against dunes older than memory. It's 800 BC, and here, in this arid cradle of mystery, a people shape their destiny not in stone or gold, but in the very bones of their children. Their legacy, skulls stretched long and high, defying nature, defying time. Skulls that whisper of beauty redefined, of divinity forged through sacrifice. What drove a civilization to reshape the human form itself? Step into the shadows of the Paracas, and let their story unravel. The Paracas Peninsula is a place of extremes. By day, the sun blisters the earth, baking the sand to a crimson glow that stretches to the horizon. By night, the stars burn cold, casting their indifferent light over a landscape that feels alive, watchful, as if guarding secrets too ancient for words. Here, in this desolate yet sacred expanse, the Paracas people thrived a civilization so enigmatic that even now, millennia later, their name evokes more questions than answers. They were weavers of textiles so intricate they rivaled the finest tapestries of empires yet to come. They were builders of tombs hidden beneath the earth, where the dead were wrapped in layers of vibrant cloth, as if to carry their stories into eternity. But among their relics, pottery, tools, and fabrics lies their most astonishing legacy. Skulls elongated to impossible proportions, a testament to a ritual that blurred the line between mortal and divine. Picture yourself standing on the edge of a Paracas necropolis, the wind tugging at your clothes, carrying the faint scent of salt and dust. Before you, a skull rests in the sand, its form both familiar and alien. Its cranium stretches upward, tapering to a point that seems to reach for the heavens. This is no accident of nature, no quirk of biology. This is the deliberate work of hands guided by belief, by a vision of beauty so profound it demanded the reshaping of the human form. Why would a people dedicate years to such a practice? What did they see in these elongated skulls that we, in our modern world, struggle to comprehend? As the desert whispers its secrets, you feel the pull of a story that is both a history and a riddle, one that begins here, in the heart of the Paracas. This is not a tale of conquest or kings, nor of battles etched in stone. It is a story of a people who looked to the stars and saw not just light, but destiny. A people who believed that to be beautiful was to be closer to the gods. As we journey deeper into their world, prepare to question everything you thought you knew about humanity, about beauty, about the lengths we go to transcend our mortal selves. Let the sands of Paracas guide you, and listen closely, for their story is only beginning. The Paracas Peninsula, a narrow strip of land jutting into the Pacific, is a paradox of life and desolation, flanked by the ocean's ceaseless rhythm on one side and the relentless expanse of the Atacama Desert on the other. It is a place where survival seems improbable, yet the Paracas people made it their home from roughly 800 BC to 100 CE. This was no fleeting settlement, no transient encampment. The Paracas built a civilization that endured for nearly a millennium, leaving behind a legacy that archaeologists still unravel with a mix of awe and bewilderment. Theirs was a world of ingenuity and mystery, a culture that wove together the practical and the sacred in ways that challenge our modern understanding. Geographically, the Paracas Peninsula is a crucible of extremes. The Humboldt Current sweeps cold waters along the coast, fostering a marine ecosystem rich enough to sustain a people who mastered fishing and trade. Yet the land itself is unforgiving, arid, rocky, and scorched by a sun that offers no mercy. The Paracas adapted with remarkable resilience, cultivating crops like cotton and maize in narrow oases fed by underground springs. Their textiles, preserved by the desert's dry embrace, are among the finest ever uncovered from the ancient world. Woven with vibrant dyes and intricate patterns, these fabrics were not mere clothing but narratives in thread, depicting myths, rituals, and perhaps even the cosmos itself. Archaeological evidence paints a picture of a stratified society, one where priests and elites held sway over a community bound by shared beliefs. The Paracas left no written records, no codices to decode their thoughts. Instead, their story is told through what they left behind. Subterranean necropolises filled with mummified remains, tools of obsidian and bone, and, most strikingly, those elongated skulls that have captivated scholars and sparked wild speculation. These artifacts, unearthed from sites like Cerro Colorado and Huaricayan, suggest a people obsessed with the interplay of life, death, and the divine. Their tombs, carefully constructed and layered with offerings, reveal a culture that saw death not as an end, but as a passage to something greater. Who were the Paracas? They were not the Incas, whose empire would rise centuries later, nor the Nazca, their successors who etched giant geoglyphs into the desert. The Paracas were a distinct people, a precursor to these later civilizations, yet their influence echoes in the cultural DNA of the Andes. Their name, derived from the Quechua word for sand falling like rain, evokes the harsh beauty of their homeland. They were a people of the coast, but their gaze was turned upward, toward the stars, and inward, toward the very essence of what it meant to be human. Their practice of cranial deformation, the deliberate elongation of skulls, was not an isolated quirk but a cornerstone of their identity, a ritual that set them apart from their neighbors and, perhaps, from the ordinary bounds of mortality. As we stand at the edge of their world, peering into the remnants of their lives, we begin to sense the weight of their beliefs. The Paracas did not merely live on the land, they transformed it, and themselves, in pursuit of something transcendent. Their story is not just one of survival, but of aspiration, a civilization that dared to reshape the human form to mirror the divine. What drove them to such lengths? To answer that, we must step closer, into the heart of their most enigmatic ritual, the art of elongating the skull. A practice that began at the dawn of life and carried the promise of eternity. In the dim light of a Paracas dwelling, a mother cradles her newborn, her hands trembling not with fear but with purpose. The air is thick with the scent of dried herbs and the faint tang of salt from the nearby Pacific. Beside her lies a simple yet sacred tool, a pair of wooden boards, smoothed by years of use, and a coil of finely woven cloth. This is no ordinary act of care. It is the beginning of a ritual that will span years, a deliberate act of transformation that will mark this child as something more than mortal. The Paracas' practice of cranial deformation begins here, at the fragile dawn of life, where the bones of a skull are still soft, pliable, and ready to be shaped into a vision of divinity. Cranial deformation, or artificial cranial modification, was not unique to the Paracas, but they elevated it to an art form, a cultural cornerstone that set them apart. The process was meticulous, almost surgical in its precision, yet rooted in a reverence that transcended the physical. From the moment a child was born, often within days, their head was carefully bound. The tools were deceptively simple. Two flat wooden boards, sometimes padded with cotton, were placed on either side of the infant's skull, one pressing against the forehead, the other against the back of the head. These boards were then wrapped tightly with strips of cloth, woven from the same vibrant textiles that adorned Paracas elites in life and death. The binding was adjusted daily, tightened incrementally over months and years, guiding the skull's growth into an elongated, conical form. This was no fleeting act. The process spanned the first few years of a child's life, a period when the cranial sutures, the soft, flexible seams between the skull's bones, remained infused, allowing for dramatic reshaping. The result was a skull stretched upward and backward, sometimes to lengths that seem almost otherworldly to modern eyes. The frontal bone flattened, the parietal bones extended, and the occipital region tapered to a point, creating a silhouette that was both striking and unsettling. Yet, to the Paracas, this was not disfigurement but perfection, a physical manifestation of something sacred, a mark of distinction that set the child apart in a society where status was everything. The act itself was not without risk. The pressure applied to the skull had to be precise. Too much force could harm the child, too little would fail to achieve the desired shape. Archaeological evidence suggests that the Paracas mastered this balance, as the vast majority of elongated skulls show no signs of trauma or brain damage. The brain, remarkably adaptable, grew to fit its new container, and the individuals lived full lives. Their altered skulls a constant reminder of their place in the cosmos. But this was not a practice for all. Only a select few, likely the children of priests, shamans, or elites, underwent this transformation, suggesting that cranial deformation was a privilege, a right reserved for those destined to bridge the human and the divine. Imagine the scene. A Paracas village at dusk, the horizon ablaze with the last light of day. A family gathers around a fire, their faces illuminated by flickering flames. The mother adjusts the bindings on her child's head, her movements gentle but resolute, guided by tradition passed down through generations. The father, Perhaps a priest adorned in a cloak of woven parrots and jaguars chants softly, invoking the spirits that watch over the ritual. The child, unaware of the weight of this act, sleeps soundly, its skull slowly yielding to the pressure of wood and cloth. This is not cruelty, but devotional labor of love that binds the family, the community, and the cosmos in a single and broken thread. What must it have been like to grow up with such a mark, to feel the weight of cloth and wood as a constant companion, to know that your very form was being sculpted to reflect a higher truth? The Paracas believed that the body was a canvas, a vessel for meaning far beyond the mundane. Their skulls, elongated and proud, were not just bones but symbols, proof that humanity could transcend its earthly limits. As we peer into this ancient practice, we are left to wonder what drove them to such lengths. What belief was so powerful that it could reshape not just a skull, but an entire culture's understanding of beauty and power? Why would a people reshape the very bones of their children? Why would they dedicate years to a ritual that, to our modern eyes, seems both alien and extreme? The answer lies not in the mechanics of cranial deformation, but in the heart of Paracas' belief, a worldview where the physical and the spiritual were not separate, but one. To the Paracas, an elongated skull was not a deformity but a declaration, a symbol of nobility, wisdom, and a connection to the divine. It was beauty made sacred, a bridge to the gods forged in flesh and bone. In the Paracas worldview, the head was the seat of the soul, the locus of intellect and spiritual power. To alter its shape was to elevate its purpose, to mark the individual as chosen, set apart from the ordinary. This practice, archaeologists believe, was reserved for the elite priests, shamans, and high-ranking families whose roles in society demanded a visible distinction. The elongated skull was a status symbol, much like the intricate textiles or obsidian tools that accompanied these individuals into their tombs. But it was more than that. It was a physical manifestation of a belief that beauty, power, and divinity were intertwined, each reinforcing the other in a cycle of sacred meaning. Tantalizing clues to their motivations lie in the Paracas' broader cultural context. Their textiles, some of the most sophisticated in the ancient world, depict fantastical beings, winged figures, deities with feline features, and anthropomorphic spirits that seem to hover between worlds. These images suggest a cosmology rich with supernatural entities, beings that the Paracas may have sought to emulate through their altered skulls. Some scholars propose that the elongated shape mimicked the form of revered ancestors or deities, whose conical heads were seen as a mark of otherworldly wisdom. Others suggest a connection to the natural world, perhaps the shape evoked the peaks of sacred mountains or the trajectory of stars across the Indian sky. The Paracas were not alone in this practice. Cranial deformation appears in cultures across the globe, from the Maya of Mesoamerica to the Huns of Eurasia, but the Paracas' approach was distinct in its intensity and its exclusivity. Only a small fraction of the population underwent the ritual, as evidenced by the limited number of elongated skulls found in their necropolises. This selectivity points to a deeply stratified society, where access to the divine was a privilege reserved for the few. The elongated skull became a badge of authority, a visible sign that its bearer was closer to the gods, entrusted with the spiritual and political stewardship of their people. Yet there is another layer to this mystery: the Paracas' obsession with transcendence. Their tombs, filled with mummies wrapped in layers of vibrant cloth, suggest a belief in an afterlife where the physical body carried meaning into eternity. The elongated skull, preserved even in death, may have served as a passport to the divine realm, a guarantee that the individual's status would endure beyond the grave. This was not vanity, but faith, a conviction that the shape of one's skull could influence one's place in the cosmic order. To the Paracas, beauty was not skin deep, it was bone deep, a testament to a life lived in pursuit of something greater. Consider the implications of such a belief. In a world without written records, where stories were woven into cloth and carved into bone, the Paracas created a language of form. An elongated skull spoke of lineage, of sacred duty, of a life dedicated to the unseen forces that govern their world. It was a choice, a sacrifice, and a legacy all at once. As we stand on the cusp of their necropolises, gazing at these altered skulls, we are forced to confront a question as old as humanity itself. What are we willing to endure to become more than we are? For the Paracas, the answer was clear. Their skulls, stretched toward the heavens, were not just a mark of beauty, but a bold declaration of their place in the universe. Step out of the desert's timeless embrace and into the stark light of the present. The year is 2025, and the Paracas Peninsula, once alive with the hum of ritual and belief, is now a silent archive of bones and dust. In museum cases and university labs, the elongated skulls of the Paracas sit under sterile lights, their conical forms casting shadows that unsettle even the most seasoned archaeologists. To our modern eyes, these skulls are a paradox both fascinating and disquieting, a practice that feels as alien as it is human. How do we, shaped by a world of science and skepticism, make sense of a culture that saw beauty in such extreme transformation? And what does their pursuit of the divine reveal about our own definitions of the beautiful and the sacred? To the contemporary observer, the Paracas practice of cranial deformation is, at first glance, shocking. The deliberate reshaping of a child's skull starting in infancy, sustained over years, strikes us as invasive, even cruel. Modern medicine warns of the risks: pressure on a developing brain, potential for injury, the irreversible alteration of the body's natural form. Yet archaeological evidence tells a different story. The Paracas skulls, meticulously studied through CT scans and forensic analysis, show no consistent signs of neurological damage. These individuals lived, worked, and died much like their unmodified peers. Their elongated heads a badge of honor rather than a burden. What we perceive as extreme, the Paracas saw as essential, a right that elevated the individual to a higher plane of existence. This dissonance forces us to confront a deeper question: is beauty absolute, or is it a mirror of the culture that defines it? In our world, beauty is often measured in symmetry, in proportions that align with mathematical ideals or fleeting trends. We sculpt our bodies with exercise, adorn them with makeup, reshape them with surgery, all in pursuit of an ideal that shifts with time. The Paracas, too, reshaped themselves, but their goal was not vanity but transcendence. Their elongated skulls were not a fashion statement but a sacred covenant, a physical link to the divine. To them, beauty was not skin deep, it was etched into the very bones of their being, a testament to their place in a cosmos we can only imagine. Consider the parallels. Today, we pierce our bodies, tattoo our skin, and alter our appearances to express identity, status, or belief. The Paracas did the same, but their canvas was the skull itself, their medium the slow, deliberate pressure of wood and cloth. What seems barbaric to us was, to them, a profound act of devotion, a way to honor their gods, their ancestors, and their community. This realization challenges us to suspend judgment, to see their world not as primitive but as purposeful. Their skulls, stretched toward the heavens, were a declaration of faith, a belief that the human form could be a bridge to something greater. Yet there is another layer to our modern fascination. The Paracas skulls have become fodder for speculation, their enigmatic forms fueling theories that range from the plausible to the fantastical. Some claim these skulls belong to beings not entirely human, pointing to their unusual size or shape as evidence of extraterrestrial origins. Such ideas, while captivating to a modern audience hungry for mystery, often distort the truth. Genetic studies confirm that the Paracas were human, their skulls the result of deliberate modification, not alien ancestry. But the persistence of these theories speaks to the skull's enduring power to unsettle, to push us beyond the boundaries of what we believe is possible. They remind us that the past is not a settled story but a living question, one that challenges our assumptions about humanity itself. As we gaze upon these relics, we are drawn into a dialogue with the Paracas. Their skulls ask us to reconsider what it means to be beautiful, to be powerful, to be human. They invite us to question the sacrifices we make in pursuit of our own ideals, whether it's time, pain, or identity, and to wonder where the line between self-expression and self-transformation lies. In the end, the Paracas teach us that beauty is not a universal truth but a cultural conversation, one that echoes across millennia, from their desert tombs to our glass-walled museums. The sun sets over the Paracas Peninsula, painting the dunes in hues of blood and gold. Beneath the sand, the necropolises hold their secrets close over 300 elongated skulls, each a silent witness to a civilization that dared to reshape the human form. These are not mere artifacts, they are stories frozen in bone, fragments of a culture that thrived on the edge of the possible. The Paracas are gone, their voices lost to time, yet their legacy endures, a riddle wrapped in the crimson sands of Peru. Who were they truly? And what do their skulls, stretched toward the stars, tell us about the boundaries of humanity? Archaeologists have unearthed a wealth of clues, yet the Paracas remain elusive. The skulls, found in sites like Cerro Colorado and Huaricayan, are a testament to their skill and conviction. Some are so dramatically elongated that they seem to defy the limits of human anatomy. Their cranial vaults expanded to volumes that sparked debate among scholars. While most align with known patterns of cranial deformation, a few outliers larger, with unusual suture patterns have fueled controversy. Are these simply variations of the same practice, or do they hint at something more? The Paracas left no written records, number Rosetta Stone to decode their beliefs, leaving us to piece together their world from fragments of cloth, bone, and pottery. The mystery deepens with each discovery. The Paracas textiles, preserved by the desert's arid grip, depict a cosmology teeming with otherworldly beings, deities with elongated heads, perhaps, or ancestors whose forms inspired the ritual of deformation. Were the Paracas emulating these figures, seeking to embody their divine essence, or were their skulls a form of communication, a signal to the gods that their bearers were worthy of notice? Some researchers speculate that the practice was tied to celestial worship, the conical shape mirroring the trajectory of stars or the peaks of sacred mountains. Others see it as a mark of lineage, a way to cement familial ties to a divine ancestry. The truth, like the Paracas themselves, remains just out of reach. The skulls also carry the weight of modern misinterpretation. In the age of the internet, they have become icons of conspiracy, their forms twisted into narratives of ancient aliens or lost civilizations. These theories, while seductive, often overshadow the real marvel, a human culture that, with nothing more than wood, cloth, and belief, reshaped the body to reflect the soul. The Paracas did not need extraterrestrial intervention to achieve the extraordinary. Their ingenuity, their faith, was enough. Yet the persistence of these myths underscores the skull's power to captivate, to draw us into a past that feels both impossibly distant and intimately familiar. Stand for a moment in the Paracas necropolis, where the skulls lie in silent rows, their empty sockets staring into eternity. They are more than relics. They are a challenge. They ask us to consider the lengths we go to in pursuit of meaning, the sacrifices we make to align ourselves with something greater. Beauty, to the Paracas, was not an illusion but a bridge, a way to touch the divine, to transcend the fleeting nature of life. Their skulls, so strange to our eyes, were their cathedrals, their symphonies, their poetry etched in bone. As we leave the Paracas behind, their story lingers like the desert wind, whispering questions that refuse to fade. What is beauty, if not a reflection of what we hold sacred? What are we willing to endure to become more than we are? The Paracas, with their elongated skulls and unwavering faith, invite us to explore these questions, not just in their world but in our own. Perhaps in the end, their greatest legacy is not the skulls themselves, but the mirror they hold up to us, a mirror that asks us to see beauty, sacrifice, and humanity not as relics of the past, but as living forces that shape who we are and who we aspire to be. So, let the Paracas be your guide. Seek out the strange, the beautiful, the inexplicable in the chapters of history yet unwritten. For in their skulls, stretched toward the stars, lies a truth as old as time. To be human is to reach, to reshape, to dream beyond the limits of flesh and bone. The Paracas Peninsula lies quiet now, its crimson sands glowing under a twilight sky. The wind, ever restless, stirs the dunes, whispering across the necropolises where the skulls of the Paracas rest, silent and eternal. These elongated relics, stretched toward a heaven they sought to touch, lie half buried in the red earth, their conical forms casting shadows that seem to pulse with the weight of ancient dreams. Each skull is a story, a life, a sacrifice, a testament to a people who believed that beauty could bridge the mortal and the divine. As we stand at the edge of their world, gazing into the empty sockets of these bones, we are left with questions that echo beyond the desert. What is beauty? What are we willing to endure to transcend our human limits? And what does it mean to chase the divine through the very shape of our being? Picture the scene one last time, a Paracas necropolis at dusk, the horizon ablaze with the last embers of day. The skulls lie in rows, their surfaces smoothed by time, their forms as alien as they are human. They are not mere artifacts but mirrors, reflecting a culture that saw the body as a canvas for eternity. The Paracas reshaped their children's skulls not out of cruelty, but out of conviction, a belief that the human form could be molded into something sacred, something that spoke to the gods. Theirs was a beauty born of sacrifice, a beauty that demanded years of patience, pain, and faith. To them, these elongated skulls were not deformities but declarations, proof that humanity could reach beyond its earthly bounds. Now, in the cool light of our modern world, we look upon these skulls and feel a shiver of unease. Their strangeness challenges us, forces us to confront the fluidity of beauty itself. Is beauty a universal truth, etched into the fabric of existence, or is it an illusion, a construct shaped by the beliefs we hold dear? The Paracas saw divinity in the curve of a skull, just as we see it in the symmetry of a face or the lines of a sculpted body. Their rituals, so foreign to us, mirror our own pursuits, our diets, our surgeries, our endless quest to redefine ourselves. What are we sacrificing, we must ask, when we chase our own ideals of perfection, time, comfort, identity? The Paracas remind us that every act of transformation comes at a cost, and yet, in that cost lies meaning, a spark of the divine we all seek in our own way. Their skulls also ask us to consider the limits of humanity. The Paracas push those limits, not with tools of steel or engines of progress, but with wood, cloth, and an unyielding vision. They believed that to alter the body was to alter the soul, to step closer to the gods who watched from the stars. What are our limits? We wonder, as we stand on the cusp of our own transformations, genetic, technological, cultural. Will we, like the Paracas, reshape ourselves to reflect our deepest beliefs, or will we shy away from the edge of what's possible? Their skulls, lying silent in the sand, are both a warning and an invitation to question how far we are willing to go, and what we hope to find when we get there. The Paracas are not alone in their audacity. History is rich with cultures that redefine beauty in ways that startle us. The Kayan women of Myanmar, with their necks stretched by brass coils, saw elegance in elongation, much like the Paracas. The ancient Chinese bound their daughters' feet, crafting delicate lotus shapes that symbolized refinement at the cost of mobility. The Maori of New Zealand carved their skin with intricate tattoos, each line a story of lineage and pride. These practices, like those of the Paracas, challenge us to look beyond our own definitions, to see beauty not as a fixed point but as a tapestry woven from culture, faith, and sacrifice. What other stories lie buried in the sands of time, waiting to unsettle and inspire us? The Paracas invite us to seek them out, to uncover the strange and beautiful ways humanity has sought to transcend itself. As we turn away from the necropolis, the skulls remain, their shadows lengthening across the desert. They are a reminder that beauty is never just skin deep, it is a story, a struggle, a bridge to something greater. Perhaps beauty is always a kind of illusion, a fleeting vision we chase to make sense of our place in the universe. Or perhaps, in the ancient land of Paracas, beauty was a bridge to the divine, to the eternal, to the very essence of what it means to be human. Their skulls, stretched toward the heavens, ask us to keep searching, to keep questioning, to keep reaching for the truths that lie just beyond our grasp. So, let the Paracas be your guide. Step into the vast, untamed pages of history, where beauty takes forms we can scarcely imagine. Seek the stories of those who, like the Paracas, dared to reshape themselves in pursuit of the sublime, for in their sacrifices, their dreams, their silent skulls, we find a reflection of our own restless hearts, a reminder that to be human is to strive, to create, to become more than we are, one bold, beautiful act at a time.